The evening begins as we settle into the peaceful rhythm of a slow voyage across the dark, still ocean. Our journey unfolds not with speed, but with a deep, soothing sense of purpose, carried by the low, steady hum of the engines beneath us. We observe the gentle transition from the last sliver of twilight to the profound, encompassing velvet of the night sky, watching as the few distant port lights finally disappear behind the horizon. The ship moves forward through the water with a constancy that feels almost like stillness itself. There is no rushing, no sudden change in direction, only the same gentle forward motion that has carried vessels across these waters for countless nights before this one. The deck beneath our feet is solid and reassuring, and we feel the faint vibration of the engines far below, a sensation so subtle and regular that it becomes part of the silence rather than a disturbance of it. We stand near the railing for a while, looking out at the darkening water. The ocean stretches in every direction, a vast expanse of gentle movement that mirrors the sky above. The waves are small and regular, lifting and falling in a pattern that repeats without variation, and the sound they make against the hull is soft and rhythmic. It is a sound that has no beginning and no ending, just a continuous presence that fills the space around us. The air is cool but not cold, and it moves across the deck in a slow, steady current. We can feel it against our face and hands, a gentle pressure that reminds us we are moving through space, even though everything feels so still. The wind carries with it the clean scent of salt water, and occasionally a hint of something metallic from the containers stacked high across the deck. These containers stand in neat rows, each one secured and silent, painted in dark colors that blend into the growing darkness. As the last of the daylight fades completely, the ship's lights come on, casting a dim orange glow across certain areas of the deck. These lights are not bright, just enough to mark pathways and edges, to show where one might walk safely in the darkness. They create small pools of illumination that do not reach very far, and between them are long stretches of shadow where the containers rise like quiet buildings in a sleeping city. We begin to walk slowly along the deck, moving without any particular destination in mind. Our footsteps are quiet on the metal surface, and we notice how each step seems to take its own time, how there is no need to hurry or to arrive anywhere quickly. The ship will continue on its course, whether we walk or stand still, and this knowledge brings a sense of ease that settles into our body and mind. The containers we pass are all closed and locked, each one holding goods that are traveling to some distant place. We do not know what is inside them, and we do not need to know. They are simply part of the ship, part of the weight and balance that keeps us moving steadily forward through the water. Some containers are stacked 2 or 3 high, creating corridors and open spaces between them, and we walk through these spaces slowly, observing how the dim light catches the corners and edges. Above us, the sky continues to darken, and soon the first stars begin to appear. They emerge one by one, small points of light that seem very far away, much farther than the horizon we can no longer see. The stars do not move or change, they simply exist in their positions, and we find comfort in their permanence. We know they have been there long before this voyage began, and will remain long after it ends. The moon has not yet risen, and so the darkness is nearly complete except for the ship's lights and the stars above. This darkness feels safe and enclosed, like being inside a quiet room with the door closed. We are aware of the vastness of the ocean around us, but we do not feel small or lost. The ship is our world for now, and it is a world that moves with purpose and certainty through the night. We continue our slow walk, passing by the same containers we walked by before, seeing them from slightly different angles. There is a large yellow container near the center of the deck, and we notice it each time we pass, its color dulled by the dim light, but still visible. We notice how the paint on some containers is beginning to fade, how there are small marks and scratches that tell of other voyages and other ports. These details are not important, but they are there to be observed, and observing them gives our minds something gentle to rest upon. The sound of the engines remains constant, a low rumble that we feel more than hear. It is the heartbeat of the ship, steady and reliable, and it blends with the sound of the water and the soft movement of air to create a kind of silence that is not truly silent but is restful nonetheless. We pause near the railing again and look down at the water sliding past the hull. The water is dark, nearly black, and it reflects nothing except occasionally a small glimmer of light from the ship. Time seems to move differently out here on the water at night. There are no clocks visible, no chiming bells or announcements to mark the hours. There is only the continuous present moment, stretching out in all directions like the ocean itself. We do not think about when we departed or when we will arrive. Those moments belong to a different kind of time, a time that exists on land where schedules and appointments matter. Here, there is only the slow passage through darkness and water. We find a place to sit on a low metal bench that is bolted to the deck near one of the container rows. The bench is cold at first, but our body warms it gradually, and we settle into a comfortable position. From here, we can see a long section of the deck, stretching forward toward the bow of the ship. The bow is too far away to see clearly, but we can sense its presence, the pointed end that cuts through the water first, creating the path that the rest of the ship follows. Sitting still, we become more aware of the gentle rocking motion of the ship. It is so subtle that we did not notice it while walking, but now, resting quietly, we can feel how the deck rises and falls in a slow, regular rhythm. The movement is like breathing, an inhale and exhale that never stops, and our own breathing begins to match this rhythm without any conscious effort. We breathe in as the deck rises slightly, breathe out as it falls. In and out, up and down, a pattern that repeats and repeats. A crew member walks past at some distance, moving from one part of the ship to another. We see only their silhouette, a figure that appears briefly in the orange light and then disappears into shadow. They do not look in our direction or speak, simply continue on their way, carrying out whatever task needs to be done. Their presence is a quiet reminder that the ship is being cared for, that someone is watching over the engines and the navigation, ensuring that everything continues as it should. We remain on the bench for a long while, watching the stars slowly wheel overhead. They seem to move, but it is we who are moving, the ship carrying us eastward through the night. The stars stay fixed in their positions while we slide beneath them, and this creates an illusion of their movement that is peaceful to observe. We do not try to name the constellations or identify particular stars. We simply watch them as they are, small lights in an immense darkness. The temperature drops slightly as the night deepens, and we pull our jacket a little tighter around us. The cold is gentle and clean, not biting or uncomfortable, just enough to make us aware of our own warmth. Our hands rest in our pockets, and we can feel our fingers slowly warming against the fabric. Everything about this moment feels measured and appropriate, nothing too much or too little. Eventually, we stand and begin walking again, moving slowly along another pathway between the containers. This path is narrower, and the containers rise on both sides, creating a corridor that feels protected and enclosed. Our footsteps echo very softly, and we notice how the sound seems to be absorbed by the metal walls around us. We walk to the end of this corridor and emerge into a more open area near the stern of the ship. From here we can see the wake stretching out behind us, a pale line of disturbed water that glows faintly in the darkness. The wake is the only evidence of our passage, a temporary mark on the surface of the ocean that will smooth away within minutes of being made. We watch it for a while, seeing how it trails straight back toward the place we came from, a place that is now too far away to imagine. There is no going back, only forward, and this thought carries no sadness or anxiety, only a simple acknowledgement of the nature of journeys. The stern of the ship is quieter than the other areas, more removed from the sounds of the engines and the activity of the crew. We find another place to sit, this time on a wide step that leads up to a higher deck level. The step is metal like everything else, and it is cold, but we do not mind. We sit and look out at the dark water and the darker sky, and we let our mind rest without thinking about anything in particular. Minutes pass, or perhaps it is longer. Time has become fluid and unmeasured. We are aware of the ship moving beneath us, aware of the air flowing past, aware of the stars above and the water below, but these awarenesses do not require any effort or attention. They simply exist, and we exist among them, part of the same quiet night. After a while, we notice a change in the quality of the darkness. Looking toward the eastern horizon, we see a very faint lightning, not bright enough to be called light, but a subtle difference in the depth of the darkness. The moon is beginning to rise, though it has not yet appeared above the edge of the world. This approaching moonrise creates a sense of gentle anticipation, though we do not feel any urgency to see it. It will rise in its own time, as it always does. We stand and walk slowly toward the starboard side of the ship, the side where the moon will appear. Other containers block our view in some places, and we navigate around them patiently, finding pathways that lead in the direction we want to go. There is no frustration when we reach a dead end and must turn back. We simply choose another route and continue walking at the same steady pace. Eventually, we find a good vantage point, an open area where the railing runs along the side of the ship without any obstacles. We position ourselves here and wait, standing quietly with our hands resting on the cool metal of the railing. The ship continues its forward motion, and we move with it, and together we wait for the moon. The glow on the horizon becomes more pronounced, a band of lighter darkness that spreads slowly upward. The stars in that part of the sky begin to fade, overwhelmed by the approaching moonlight, though they remain visible elsewhere in the sky. We watch this gradual transformation with a calm attention, not thinking about it or analyzing it, simply observing the way one thing becomes another thing without hurry or drama. Then, finally, the first curve of the moon appears at the horizon, a slim arc of pale light that grows as it rises. The moon is not full, perhaps 3/4 illuminated, and its light is soft and silvery rather than harsh or bright. As it climbs higher, it begins to cast its reflection on the water, a shimmering path that leads from the horizon toward the ship. This path of light is broken by the gentle waves, fragmenting and reforming constantly, and we watch it stretch across the dark surface of the ocean. The moon rises slowly, clearing the horizon and lifting into the open sky. Its light spreads across the deck, casting soft shadows behind the containers and illuminating surfaces that were hidden in darkness before. The orange glow of the ship's lights seems dimmer now in comparison, and the moon becomes the primary source of illumination. Everything takes on a different quality in moonlight, softer and more dreamlike, and the world of the ship feels even more removed from ordinary reality. We continue to stand at the railing, watching the moon's reflection on the water. The path of light seems to follow us, or perhaps we are following it, moving along its silvery trail toward some destination that exists far beyond the horizon. The water in this path is bright, almost glowing, while the water on either side remains dark. It creates a sense of direction and purpose, even though we know the ship is simply following its predetermined course without deviation. The air feels different now in the moonlight, cooler perhaps, or maybe just clearer. We can see farther across the deck, making out details that were invisible before. The containers stand in their orderly rows, their colors muted but visible, their shapes clearly defined. We can see the various cables and equipment secured to the deck, the safety railings running along every edge, the small structures and housings that contain important equipment. Everything is in its place, everything is secured and stable. We begin to walk again, moving slowly along the moonlit deck. Our shadow moves with us, cast long and thin by the angle of the moon, and we notice how it stretches ahead of us across the metal surface. Walking in moonlight feels different than walking in darkness. There is a gentle visibility that makes navigation easier while still maintaining the quiet intimacy of night. We are not exposed or revealed by this light, merely accompanied by it. As we walk, we think about how many people have stood on ship decks in moonlight over the centuries. How many sailors and passengers have watched the moon rise over an ocean horizon. This thought connects us to a long history of sea travel, to all those voyages that came before and all those that will come after. We are participating in something ancient and ongoing, something that has repeated itself countless times in countless places. This feeling of connection is comforting, a reminder that our small journey is part of a much larger pattern. We make our way forward along the deck, passing containers and equipment, moving around obstacles and through open spaces. The ship's bridge is far ahead, rising above the deck with its rows of windows dark, except for a few small lights inside. We can imagine the officer on watch standing there, monitoring the instruments, checking the course, ensuring that the ship maintains its heading through the night. But we do not walk toward the bridge. We remain in the cargo area, in the world of containers and moonlight. Finding another place to rest, we sit on a coiled rope that is secured to the deck. The rope is thick and rough, and it provides a comfortable seat. From here we can see the moon higher in the sky now, well clear of the horizon. and its reflection on the water has shortened as the angle has changed. The path of light is still visible, but narrower, less prominent than when the moon was lower. We sit for a long time, simply being present with the night and the ship and the water. Our thoughts slow down and become less distinct, drifting like the ship itself through a calm sea. We might think about home or about the destination that lies ahead, but these thoughts are gentle and unfocused, lacking any emotional weight or urgency. They rise and fall like the subtle rocking of the deck, present but not demanding attention. The sound of the water against the hull continues unchanged, that soft, rhythmic lapping that has been constant since the journey began. The sound is like a voice that speaks without words, telling us that everything is as it should be, that we are safe and cared for by the steady progress of the ship. We listen to this sound without really listening, letting it fill the background of our awareness, like a comforting presence. Occasionally we hear other sounds, a door closing somewhere in the distance, the faint clank of metal on metal, a voice calling out something unintelligible from far away. These sounds are brief and isolated, interrupting the quiet only momentarily before the silence returns. They do not startle us or draw our attention strongly. They are simply part of the soundscape of the ship, reminders that we are not alone, even though we are sitting in solitude. We notice how our body has relaxed completely, how our muscles have softened, and our breathing has become slow and deep. The cold of the metal and rope beneath us no longer registers as uncomfortable. We have adjusted to it, and it has become neutral, neither pleasant nor unpleasant, simply part of the experience. Our hands rest loosely in our lap, and our shoulders have dropped from whatever tension they might have held earlier. The moon continues its arc across the sky, moving from east toward the southern part of the heavens. Its light remains steady, neither brightening nor dimming, providing just enough illumination to see by, but not enough to read or work by. This is a light for observation, for quiet looking, not for activity or effort. We watch a thin cloud pass in front of the moon, dimming its light for a moment, and then the cloud moves on, and the light returns unchanged. We stand eventually and resume our slow walking, making our way around the deck in a loose circle. We have walked this same path several times now, and it has become familiar. We know where the narrow passages are, where the steps rise to higher levels, where the open spaces allow a view of the water. This familiarity is reassuring, creating a sense of home even in this temporary floating world. As we walk, we run our hand along the side of a container, feeling the corrugated metal surface beneath our palm. The ridges and valleys of the corrugation are regular and repeating, and sliding our hand along them creates a gentle tactile rhythm. The metal is cool and slightly damp from the sea air, and our hand leaves a faint trail in the thin layer of moisture. We continue walking and remove our hand from the container, letting our arm hang naturally at our side. The eastern sky shows no sign of dawn. It is still deep night, the darkest part of the night perhaps, when the moon is high and the sun is still far below the opposite horizon. This is the time when the world feels most quiet, most removed from daytime concerns and activities. This is the time that belongs to rest and reflection, to slow movements and gentle thoughts. We find a sheltered spot in the lee of a large container, a place where the wind does not reach, and where the moon casts a shadow that creates a pocket of darkness. We settle into this spot, sitting with our back against the container, feeling its solid presence behind us. The metal is cold against our back, but it is also stable and strong, a wall that will not move or shift. We draw our knees up slightly and wrap our arms around them, creating a compact, protected posture. From this position, we can see only a small section of sky between the containers that rise around us. The view is limited, but this limitation feels comforting rather than restrictive. We are not seeking vast vistas or endless horizons. We are seeking a contained space, a small corner of the night that we can occupy without distraction. The stars visible in our limited view are sufficient. The sound of the water is clear. The vibration of the engines travels through the container at our back. Everything we need is present in this small space. We close our eyes for a moment, not sleeping but simply resting them from the effort of looking. With our eyes closed, the other senses become more prominent. The sound of the water seems louder, more detailed. We can hear individual waves breaking against the hull, can distinguish between the splash and the subsequent drain of water running down the metal surface. The wind, though blocked by the container, creates small eddies and currents that we can hear moving through the rigging and equipment. The engines hum their steady note, never varying in pitch or volume. Opening our eyes again, we see the same small section of sky, the same stars in the same positions. Nothing has changed in the moment our eyes were closed, and this constancy is exactly what we need. We do not want surprise or novelty. We want repetition and predictability, the assurance that the next moment will be essentially the same as this moment, and the moment after that will be the same as well. Our breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the ship's movement through the water. Each breath takes several seconds, a long, slow inhale through the nose, a pause, and then a long, slow exhale through slightly parted lips. This rhythm feels natural and effortless, requiring no conscious control or attention. It is as if the ship is breathing for us, or we are breathing for the ship, the two of us joined in a shared cycle of motion and stillness. Time passes in this way, unmeasured and unimportant. We might sit in this spot for 10 minutes or for an hour. There is no way to tell and no need to know. The clock time that governs life on land has no relevance here. Here there is only the slow accumulation of moments, each one identical to the last, creating a continuous present that stretches out in both directions without beginning or end. We shift our position slightly, adjusting our weight, and then settle again into stillness. The small movement is enough to relieve any stiffness, and then the relaxation returns, deeper than before. We notice how our head has become heavy, how it wants to rest against something. We let it lean back against the container, and the metal, though hard, provides support. The angle is not perfect, but it is acceptable, and we remain in this position with our head tilted back and our eyes looking up at the narrow strip of sky. A satellite crosses the sky, a tiny point of light moving steadily from one side of our view to the other. It takes perhaps 30 seconds to cross the space between the containers, and then it is gone, continuing on its orbit around the Earth. We watch its passage without much interest, noting it but not following it beyond the boundary of our visible sky. It is just another moving thing, in a night of gentle movements, no more or less significant than the ship or the waves or the slowly wheeling stars. The moon has moved significantly now, no longer directly overhead, but trending westward. Its light still illuminates the deck, but from a different angle, creating different shadows and highlighting different surfaces. The containers that were bright before are now in shadow, and those that were dark have caught the light. This slow transformation is part of the natural progression of the night, the way the world turns and the moon travels and everything shifts from one state to another without haste or drama. We remain in our sheltered spot for a while longer, not ready yet to move, not ready to give up this small protected space. But eventually the stillness of sitting becomes less comfortable than the gentle activity of walking, and we stand slowly, unfolding our body from its compact position. Our legs are slightly stiff, and we take a moment to stretch them, bending one knee and then the other, feeling the blood flow return to normal. The stiffness passes quickly, and we begin to walk again, leaving our sheltered spot behind. The moon is lower now in the western sky, and its light has taken on a slightly different quality, softer perhaps, or more golden. We are not sure if this change is real or imagined, but it seems to us that the light has warmed somehow, become less silver and more amber. This warmth seems to spread across the deck, touching everything with a gentle glow that makes the containers and equipment look less industrial, more like natural forms shaped by time and weather. We walk toward the bow of the ship, an area we have not explored yet during this night walk. The path leads us between container stacks and around various pieces of equipment, and the walking takes several minutes of slow, steady progress. We do not mind the distance or the obstacles. The journey itself is the purpose, not the arrival at any particular destination. When we reach the bow area, we find a railing that looks out over the front of the ship. From here we can see the bow cutting through the water, creating a small wave that spreads outward on both sides. The water is pushed aside gently, without force or violence, and it flows along the hull in smooth lines before settling back into the sea behind us. The moon's light catches this moving water, making it gleam and sparkle faintly, and we watch the pattern repeat endlessly as the bow continues to part the water, and the water continues to flow aside. The view ahead is unobstructed ocean, a vast darkness that extends to the horizon where it meets the sky in a line we can barely distinguish. There is nothing to see in that darkness, no islands or ships or lights of any kind, just the empty sea stretching onward toward whatever lies beyond our sight. This emptiness is not frightening or lonely. It is peaceful and clean, a blank canvas of water and air that contains no demands or expectations. We stand at the bow railing for a long time, our hands resting on the cold metal, our eyes looking forward into the darkness. The wind is slightly stronger here at the front of the ship, and it presses against us with a steady pressure that we lean into slightly. Our hair moves in the wind, and we feel it against our face and neck, a gentle touch that comes and goes as the wind shifts and settles. The sound of the water is louder here too, the sound of parting and flowing immediate and present. The stars above the bow are the same stars we saw from other parts of the ship, but somehow they seem brighter here, more distinct. Perhaps it is because we are farther from the ship's lights, or perhaps it is simply that we are paying more attention now, looking more carefully at their small, precise points. We try to find patterns in them, connect them into shapes, but our tired mind cannot hold the concentrations long enough to complete the effort. The stars remain individual lights, separate and scattered across the sky. We think about the other ships that might be traveling these waters, too far away to see, but present nonetheless, all of them moving slowly through the same night toward their own destinations. We think about the people on those ships, perhaps standing at railings as we are standing, looking out at the same ocean under the same sky. This thought creates a sense of companionship despite the distance, a feeling that we are part of a community of travelers all engaged in the same quiet activity of crossing water during darkness. The feeling passes, and our mind empties again, returning to the simple observation of what is immediately present: the water, the wind, the stars, the steady progress of the ship. These elements fill our awareness completely, leaving no room for more complex thoughts or feelings. This simplicity is restful, a relief from the normal complexity of thought that fills our days on land. Here there is only the essential, only the immediate, only the now. After a time we turn away from the bow and begin the walk back toward the stern, retracing our path through the container maze. The walk takes longer on the return, or seems to take longer, perhaps because we are moving more slowly now, our energy settling into a deeper quietness. We pause several times along the way, not because we need to rest, but because stopping feels as appropriate as moving. We stand still for a minute or two, then continue walking. Stop again, then continue. The alternation between movement and stillness creates a rhythm that matches the gentle rhythm of the waves. The moon is lower still, approaching the western horizon, and we know that in another hour or two it will set, leaving the sky dark again until dawn begins far away on the opposite horizon. But that is time that has not yet come, and we do not concern ourselves with it. The moon is still present, still providing its soft light, and that is sufficient for this moment. We find our way back to the area near the stern, to the wide step where we sat earlier. The step is familiar now, a place we have been before, and we sit on it again, settling into the same position. The cold of the metal is less noticeable than before, or perhaps we have grown more accustomed to it. We arrange ourselves comfortably and look out at the wake still trailing behind the ship, the pale line still visible in the moonlight. The wake has not changed. It is the same as it was before, a constant feature of the ship's passage that will persist as long as the ship continues to move. This unchanging quality is deeply restful. We do not need to wonder what the wake will look like or whether it will still be there. We know it will be exactly as it is now, and this knowledge allows our mind to rest without question or concern. We sit on the step for a long while, our body completely relaxed, our breathing slow and deep. The vibration of the engines comes up through the step and into our body, a gentle humming that seems to travel through bones and muscles, creating a subtle massage that works from the inside out. We feel this vibration as a kind of lullaby, a physical manifestation of the ship's voice singing us toward sleep. Our eyes grow heavy, the lids wanting to close, and we do not fight this heaviness. We let our eyes close for longer periods, opening them occasionally to check that everything remains as it was, then closing them again. The gaps between opening and closing grow longer, the periods of closed eyes stretching from seconds to minutes. During these times of closed eyes, we are not quite sleeping, but not quite awake either, existing in a space between the two states that is both restful and aware. The sounds around us continue unchanged. The water, the wind, the engines, all maintaining their steady presence. These sounds do not disturb our rest, but support it, providing a consistent background that prevents the silence from becoming too complete or too empty. We need these gentle sounds, need their confirmation that the world continues to exist and function around us, allowing us to rest within its functioning. Time moves forward in its slow way, each moment passing into the next without hurry or significance. The moon continues its descent toward the western horizon, growing lower and lower, its light becoming more horizontal, casting longer shadows across the deck. The quality of the light changes again, becoming softer, dimmer, preparing for its eventual disappearance below the edge of the world. We open our eyes and watch the moon for a while, seeing how it has changed position since we last looked. The movement is visible if we watch long enough, a slow sinking that will eventually take it below the horizon. We do not wait to see this final descent. We know it will happen whether we watch or not, and there is no need to witness every moment of its passage. Some things can be allowed to happen outside our observation, and this is one of them. Standing slowly, we stretch our body gently, reaching our arms above our head and bending from side to side. The movement is minimal, just enough to maintain looseness in muscles that have been still for so long. We take a deep breath, filling our lungs with the cool night air, and then release it slowly, feeling our body settle back into its relaxed state. The brief stretch has refreshed us slightly without creating any sense of alertness or energy. We remain deeply calm, deeply quiet. We walk one more time around the deck, a final circuit, before finding a place to settle for the remainder of the night. This walk is the slowest yet, each step deliberate and careful, our attention focused on the simple act of placing one foot in front of the other. The deck passes beneath us, familiar now, every container and cable and piece of equipment recognized from previous passages. We are walking through a known landscape, a place that has become ours during these hours of slow exploration. The moon is very low now, just above the horizon, its light nearly horizontal, creating dramatic shadows that stretch across the entire width of the deck. These shadows are deep and dark, and the contrast between light and shadow is more pronounced than at any previous time during the night. We walk through light and shadow alternately, emerging from darkness into brightness and back into darkness again, a rhythmic progression that matches our steps. We find a final resting place near a container in the middle of the ship, a spot that is both open to the sky and protected from the wind. There is a tarp covering some equipment nearby, and we pull a loose corner of it free, draping it over our shoulders for a bit of additional warmth. The tarp smells of salt and oil, industrial smells that are somehow comforting in their familiarity. We sit with our back against the container and the tarp around our shoulders, looking up at the sky. The moon touches the horizon, and we watch as it begins to sink below the edge. The process takes several minutes, the bright disk slowly disappearing from bottom to top, leaving a faint glow in the sky where it was. Then even that glow begins to fade, and the darkness deepens, the stars becoming more visible again as the moon's light no longer competes with them. In this deeper darkness, the ship's orange lights seem brighter, their glow more prominent against the black of the night. The lights cast their pools of illumination across the deck, creating small islands of visibility in an ocean of darkness. We can see less than before, but we do not mind. The darkness is welcome, a blanket that covers everything softly, hiding details and simplifying the world into basic shapes and shadows. Our eyes adjust to this new darkness, and we find we can still see enough to make out the forms of containers and equipment, can still distinguish the deck from the sky and the railing from the air beyond it. The vision is limited and imprecise, but it is sufficient. We do not need clarity or detail. We need only the basic reassurance that the world is still there, that the ship continues to move through the water, that everything remains stable and secure. The sound of the engines seems louder in the deeper darkness, or perhaps we are simply paying more attention to it now that the visual world has become less interesting. The hum rises and falls slightly, a variation so subtle that we would not have noticed it before. But now, in this state of deep relaxation and careful attention, we can hear the small fluctuations. They do not concern us. They are simply part of the engine's voice, the way any voice has small variations in pitch and volume without the fundamental sound changing. We pull the tarp tighter around our shoulders and let our head rest back against the container. The position is comfortable enough, and we feel no need to move or adjust. The metal behind us is firm and cool. The tarp around us provides warmth, and the deck beneath us is solid and still. All the elements are in place for rest, for a deep settling that might lead to sleep, or might simply lead to a continuation of this quiet wakefulness. Our breathing slows even further, each breath taking many seconds, the pause between inhale and exhale growing longer. In these pauses there is a complete stillness, a moment when nothing moves and nothing sounds, when even the ship and the water seem to pause in their motion. Then the breath comes again, and motion resumes, and the world continues its slow turning. The stars above us are uncountable, too many to ever number, too distant to ever reach. They fill the sky from horizon to horizon, a vast glittering presence that has looked down on every ocean voyage ever undertaken. We feel very small beneath them, but not insignificant. We are small in scale, but present in reality, a conscious awareness resting on a ship that moves through water beneath a sky full of stars. This presence is enough. This awareness is sufficient. We might drift into sleep, might pass from this state of quiet wakefulness into actual slumber without noticing the transition. Or we might remain in this state between sleeping and waking, this peaceful liminal space where the mind is mostly quiet but still faintly aware. It does not matter which occurs. Both states are restful. Both provide the deep peace that we came to this deck to find. The ship moves forward through the water. The engines maintain their steady hum. The stars wheel slowly overhead, and we rest against the container with the tarp around our shoulders. The night continues around us and within us, and we continue within the night, part of its slow passage across the face of the ocean, part of its gentle movement toward the dawn that will eventually come, but is still many hours away. The water continues its soft lapping against the hull. The wind continues its gentle movement across the deck, and the ship continues its steady progress toward whatever destination awaits somewhere beyond the horizon. These continuances are all we need to know, all we need to hold in our awareness. They are enough to rest upon, enough to carry us through these hours of darkness, enough to sustain the deep quiet that has settled into our mind and body. We sit in stillness as the night deepens around us, as the darkness becomes complete, as the world narrows to this single point of presence on a deck that moves so slowly through such vast spaces. Everything is as it should be. Everything is in its place, and we are part of that everything. Resting quietly while the ship carries us forward through calm waters under a sky full of silent stars. The engines hum their constant note, the water whispers its endless song, and we rest within these sounds, cradled by their repetition, held safe by their continuation. The night surrounds us, and we surrender to it, letting go of all remaining tension, all remaining thought, all remaining awareness, except the simple knowledge that we are here, now, in this moment, on this ship, in this darkness, and that this is exactly where we need to be. We become aware of the gentle coolness of the air against our face, the way it moves past us in slow currents that seem to have no source and no destination. The air simply moves, because that is what air does at sea, flowing from one place to another in patterns too complex to understand and too gentle to disturb. We feel this air on our cheeks and forehead, and it is neither warm nor truly cold, just present, just touching us softly as we sit in our resting place. The tarp around our shoulders shifts slightly in the breeze, making a soft rustling sound that lasts only a moment before settling back into stillness. The sound is quiet enough that we might not have noticed it if our mind had been full of thoughts, but in this state of deep quiet, we hear it clearly and note it without judgment or concern. It is simply another sound in the collection of sounds that make up the night, another small voice in the quiet conversation between wind and water and ship. Our hands rest in our lap, one on top of the other, and we notice how they have grown still, how they no longer fidget or adjust or seek any particular position. They have found their place and remain there, content to simply be hands at rest, requiring nothing and offering nothing except their quiet presence. The fingers are slightly curled, not clenched or tense, just naturally curved in the way that hands curve when all effort has been released from them. Time has become something abstract, a concept rather than a measurement. We do not know how long we have been sitting here, do not know how many minutes or hours have passed since we first settled against this container with the tarp around us. The question does not concern us because the answer would change nothing. Whether it has been 1 hour or 3, we would remain exactly as we are, resting in exactly this way, experiencing exactly this quality of peace. The stars continue their slow movement across the sky, though calling it movement is not quite accurate. They appear to move only because we are moving, because the earth beneath the ocean, beneath the ship, is turning on its axis, carrying us with it through space. The stars themselves remain fixed in their positions, constant and unchanging, and it is we who travel beneath them, we who create the illusion of their motion through our own motion. This thought is interesting, but not important, and it drifts through our mind and disappears like a cloud passing across an empty sky. We notice that our body has grown heavier, that it presses more firmly against the container and the deck beneath us. This is not actual weight increasing, but the feeling of weight, the sensation that comes when muscles release their last tension and the body gives itself fully to gravity and support. We are being held by the ship, supported by its solid structure, and we trust this support completely, allowing our full weight to rest upon it without reservation or fear. The darkness around us is complete now, a darkness that feels almost tangible, almost like a substance rather than an absence. We could reach out and touch this darkness, we think, could run our fingers through it as if through water, but we do not reach out. Our arms remain still, our hands remain in our lap, and the darkness remains undisturbed around us, wrapping us in its soft embrace. A small sound comes from somewhere on the ship, a metallic click or snap that echoes briefly and then fades. We hear it, but do not try to identify its source or understand its meaning. It is simply a sound that happened and now has finished happening, passing from the present into the past without leaving any lasting impression. The silence returns immediately, filling the space where the sound was, and everything continues as it was before. Our breathing has become so slow and so regular that we barely notice it anymore. It happens by itself, without any conscious direction or control. The body breathing, because that is what bodies do, requiring no thought or attention from the mind. The air flows in and flows out, and with each cycle we sink a little deeper into this state of rest, this place of complete ease where nothing needs to happen and nothing needs to change. We think about how the ocean beneath us extends downward for miles, a vast column of water between the ship's hull and the distant sea floor. We cannot see this depth, cannot perceive it directly, but we know it is there, this enormous space filled with dark water and silence. The thought is not frightening but calming, a reminder of how much substance lies beneath us, supporting us, holding us up. We are not floating on a thin surface, but resting on top of a deep and solid mass, and this mass will not fail or falter. The ship moves through this water steadily, its bow parting the surface and its stern leaving the wake, and this movement continues hour after hour without pause or variation. The engines do not rest, the propeller does not stop turning, and the forward progress never ceases. This constancy is remarkable when we think about it, this unwavering continuation of purpose and motion. But we do not think about it for long. The thought comes and goes, interesting for a moment and then fading back into the general quiet of the mind. We adjust our position slightly, shifting our weight to one side, and then settle again. The adjustment is minimal, just enough to prevent any discomfort from developing, and then we return to our complete stillness. The container behind us remains solid and cool. The tarp around us remains soft and warming, and the deck beneath us remains flat and stable. All the elements of our resting place continue to provide exactly what we need. The night air carries with it the scent of salt and water, a clean smell that has been constant since we first came on deck many hours ago. This smell is so familiar now that we barely register it, but when we pay attention, we notice it again, fresh and clear as if for the first time. Salt and water and metal, the essential smells of a ship at sea, the smells that define this environment and this experience. We hear the water moving past the hull below us, a soft rushing sound that never stops and never changes in character. It is the sound of displacement, of liquid being pushed aside by the ship's passage, of the ocean accommodating our movement through it. The water does not resist or complain. It simply moves aside and flows back together behind us, eternal and accepting, allowing our passage without any sign of effort or strain. Our eyes have closed again, we realize, though we do not remember closing them. They have simply drifted shut on their own, following the body's natural inclination toward rest and darkness. Behind our closed lids, we see nothing, just a dark field that might be the inside of our eyelids, or might be the darkness of the night itself. It does not matter which it is. Darkness is darkness, whether internal or external, and it serves the same purpose of quieting the mind and encouraging rest. The vibration of the engines continues to travel through the structure of the ship and into our body, a constant, gentle trembling that we feel in our back and legs and arms. This vibration is so steady and so persistent that it has become part of our normal state, part of what it feels like to exist in this moment. If it were to suddenly stop, we would notice its absence immediately, would feel the lack of that constant, subtle stimulation. But it does not stop, and so we continue to feel it, continue to be gently massaged by the ship's mechanical heartbeat. We open our eyes briefly, checking that the world is still there, and find that it is. The deck, the containers, the scattered lights, the stars above all remain in their positions, all continue to exist in the same configuration as before. This confirmation is satisfying in a quiet way. We needed no proof that the world would continue, but having that proof anyway brings a small comfort. We close our eyes again and return to the darkness behind them. Time passes or seems to pass, though we have no way to measure its passage. The ship moves forward, covering distance across the ocean's surface, but we do not move with it in any way that we can feel. We are stationary relative to the ship, and the ship is our entire world, and so we experience ourselves as completely still, even while knowing intellectually that we are traveling at some steady speed through space. This contradiction does not trouble us. We accept both truths simultaneously without any sense of conflict or confusion. A slight change in the air announces something, though we do not know what. Perhaps the wind has shifted direction slightly, or perhaps a bank of cloud has moved across some distant part of the sky. The change is too subtle to identify with certainty, just a feeling that something is different now than it was a moment ago. We take note of this feeling and then release it, letting it go the way we have let go of everything else that does not require our attention or response. The sound of the water remains constant, that soft rhythmic lapping that has been our companion throughout this long night. We have heard this sound for so many hours now that it has become part of the silence rather than a contrast to it. True silence, we realize, is not the absence of all sound, but the presence of consistent, predictable sounds that do not vary or surprise. The water provides this kind of silence, this sonic background that allows the mind to rest as fully as the body. Our head remains tilted back against the container, and we have stopped noticing the hardness of the metal against our skull. The discomfort that might have developed has not developed, or if it has, we have moved beyond it into a state where such minor physical sensations no longer register as important. The body has its needs and its limits, but in this deep state of rest, those needs and limits have receded far into the background, becoming barely perceptible whispers rather than clear voices. We think about nothing in particular, and even that description is too active, too intentional. We are not thinking about nothing. We are simply not thinking, existing in a state where thoughts do not arise, or, if they do arise, pass through so quickly and so lightly that they leave no trace. The mind has become like the surface of the water, smooth and undisturbed, reflecting the darkness around it without adding anything of its own. The ship continues its passage through the night, and we continue our rest against the container, and these two continuations happen simultaneously and together, both part of the same larger continuation of the night itself. Everything continues, everything flows forward, and we flow with it, requiring no effort and making no resistance, simply being carried along by forces larger than ourselves, forces that have their own direction and purpose that we do not need to understand or question. Our breathing slows even further, approaching the edge of what seems possible, each breath taking so long that we almost forget we are breathing at all. The pause between exhale and inhale stretches out, a moment of complete stillness when no air moves in or out, and the body simply waits. Then the inhale comes, slow and deep and effortless, filling the lungs from bottom to top. And then the pause, again, before the exhale begins its own slow journey outward. Nothing more is required of us. Nothing more is expected, and nothing more will come to disturb this deep peace that has settled over everything like a soft blanket covering the world from edge to edge. We rest in this peace, breathing slowly, existing quietly, being present without effort or intention, simply resting as the ship moves forward through the calm waters of the night.